James, it's so good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your new role. I'm excited to hear about your journey and hear about how things are going. It's been just a week or two. Can you tell us a little bit about where you landed, and then we'll kind of get back to the beginning of the journey?
Sure. Yeah, about a week and a half ago, I started a senior product manager role at Rocket Lawyer. Rocket Lawyer is a legal tech and legal marketplace company focused on, I think our stated mission statement is bringing justice to more people. So really a little bit of a social good element, but also, obviously more on the SaaS side.
Yeah, I love that. That's wonderful. Well, congratulations on that. Let's start at the kind of the beginning for people who may not know you. Most of the people watching don't know you personally. I'd love to hear a little about like what's your 30-second career snapshot. Not a full tell me about yourself, but just a little bit of a journey, some highlights of in your career so far.
Sure. Yeah, my career arc has been at a super high level. Started out actually in more traditional engineering, transitioned from manufacturing and mechanical engineering into UX research and design, and then that turned into realizing the product management existed and making that my career and where I've been for the last 10 years or so.
That's awesome. I love how when people think, "Oh, I don't have a traditional path into product management." I think the traditional path into product management is anything but a traditional path into
Right.
product management,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the tradition at this point. So that's great. When you think back to before you joined the program, when you were looking for that role, what did that look like for you? How are you spending your time? How are you going about your job search? What was going on there?
Yeah, the at the risk of sounding cliched, there was very little intention. I was broadly disenchanted with my role that I had at the time. A lot of somewhat abstract, but just general things that I wasn't thrilled with. Mostly on the practical day to day. What level of impact am I having? Is this helping me progress in my career? And yeah, I to be frank, I hadn't super deeply started job searching before I joined the program,
Okay.
and the program really served as somewhat of a grounding force to how to jump into it.
Nice. So, with the fact that you hadn't really started, what is it that kind of caused you to seek out help with that? I mean, we've all been in jobs that probably at some point where we were a little bit disillusioned from how great we thought it was going to be. Maybe it's kind of a downtick in how it's going. But what caused you to decide maybe I want to find some help in this journey?
Yeah. Um, to edit a little bit of what I said, I now that I've been through the program, what I was doing prior to the program didn't feel like I was on a job search. I was
Hmm.
trolling LinkedIn. I was throwing in an application here and there, um, but it was very lackluster. The impact of the program and the reason that I jumped into the program was that I really didn't have a great understanding of where to start, uh, and um, and especially in a strange, I think is a fair term, job market and economic situation. Really felt like I needed a little bit of help and guidance in how I was going to approach it and jump into it.
No, I glad that you share that. I think that a lot of times we think because we solve problems as product managers all the time that solving the job search problem is something that we should just be able to do. But the reality is we don't typically spend most of our career actually looking for jobs. And so it is its own craft and
Yeah,
there's a process to it. And it can be a skill that can be developed that oftentimes we don't really want to develop it all the time. We just need it when we need it.
yeah.
No, I'm glad to thank you for sharing that. That's great. When you were thinking about deciding to sign up, yeah, were there any hesitations about joining IPM? And if so, what were those hesitations? What were some of your thoughts as you were assessing it?
Yeah. So, just for some context, my introduction to IPM was somewhat of a cold outreach from one of the IPM members, and or maybe it was Shobit directly. Hard to say. But had a kind of introductory call, and to be totally frank, went into that call basically expecting zero and almost like thinking about it as a sales spam call that I was going to have to like deflect and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do this." Um, so the things that jumped out were just a little bit of distrust, general distrust in people trying to sell something, and even just the notion of paying. paying for this type of service. There's, I think, I had a hard time resolving this imbalance, but we'll talk about the value I've gotten out of the program in a second. But I didn't feel like that cost was worth actually spending money, which now
Mm.
seems a little silly. But I was a little hesitant to spend a reasonably significant amount of money, even though it was for my own betterment.
Hmm. It is. It can feel hard. Like once again, it's that whole idea of I can do this on my own, right? There's a lot of things that we can do on our own, but maybe we shouldn't, right? There are
Yeah.
things that you can accelerate. But no, I understand that exploration for as kind of what would be some of your hesitation. What is it in that process? Where was it in that moment where you're like, you know what? I'm ready to go. What pushed you over the edge to make the decision and go ahead and invest in yourself in this way?
So there were two critical moments. One was during that call, and one was after. The during that call was the conversation when we got to the point of what my value in the market probably should be. And obviously, I still had some hesitation, some asterisks, and going off in my head of this is someone who's invested in me purchasing something from them. But it did sound like there was a body of knowledge that I'd be able to leverage from
Mm.
IPM that I just had no access to. It was pretty opaque for me, and so hearing that obviously helped me do the calculus of, okay, there is a level of investment that might be worth investing in. So that
Okay.
was the first. The second was, and this is a very meta comment because of what we're doing right now. I started looking at some of the graduate testimonials and scrolling through them and saw a current colleague of mine who had gone through the program. Had no idea, someone I'd worked with. This is my second job with them. And I was able to reach out to them directly and say, hey, brush off all the fluff. Like, was this a good program? And he transparently was like, I would sign up again. Um,
Yeah.
so pretty cut and dry, like, nice direct feedback there.
That's awesome. I People have asked me. I mean, obviously, I've been coaching here for a while, so clearly, I believe in what we're doing. But a good friend of mine that I hired 7 years ago was caught in a layoff, and one of the things I advised him is like, look, I know that you know a lot about the job search because we worked in a space that was all about that. I said, but it's really hard to find people who will speak truth into your life about how you're doing in this process. And
Hmm.
this program will do that for you. So I would encourage you to consider it. Right. They ended
Yeah.
up joining and then landing a role and graduating as well. And so that part was great. But there is something about having that firsthand knowledge of someone being able to say yes. So I'm glad that there's the meta element of you watch some of the graduation calls and that now you're here, which is
Yeah.
also a fun full loop here. Um, Once you got into the program, let's talk about that beginning phases. What were some of your first, what was a big aha moment or a learning that you were like, yes, this is really what I needed?
I think the first, well, I'll answer a slightly different question and then I'll get to my aha moment.
Sure.
I had a somewhat negative aha moment from my personal experience initially because I realized how shallowly, I don't think that's the word, but how shallowly I was thinking about my experiences and my stories and how I was conveying them.
Hmm.
And that manifested in just some of the early exercises of like, what am I looking for? And what have I done? And what is my experience? And having to articulate that in like pretty straightforward ways. These aren't complex questions, but
Right.
I had a pretty early realization that I'm glad I was having help because there was not a ton of well articulated thought coming out in those first few weeks.
Yeah.
Um, and then, as a side note, 2 weeks after I signed up for the program, I fell off my bike. I ended up having shoulder surgery. There was like a pretty major disruption to my job search and the program and everything. And I think just the flexibility and the grace of the program, just being like, okay, well, great, come back when you're ready. We're
Hmm.
here. Just as a side note, that was really helpful and beneficial. Um,
Good.
the true and I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, the true aha moment was working through the Team A, which is tell me about yourself for anyone who has not been indoctrinated yet. the amount of time spent on a 2-minute answer felt incredibly burdensome. But after the first few interviews, where despite how structured and weird it felt from my perspective, those hitting really well. And I basically didn't get a no, certainly not an early round no,
Hmm.
after using my team A, full stop.
Love it. Love
Um,
it.
and seeing the hit rate on that was incredibly powerful.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that there are people who feel like, why do we push so hard that this needs to be really buttoned up, well practiced, ready to be delivered? And it's because um, it makes a big difference on whether you get invited to the next round.
Yeah,
And I mean, one of the things that we share often is that it's not that any one of these pieces will land you the job. It's a sequence of earning the next step in the journey, and getting that team A really polished allows for you to earn the next step. Your resume gets you a call, your LinkedIn profile gets you a call, the call gets you a team A, the team A gets you a hiring manager, the hiring manager gets you a loop, the loop gets you the offer, right? It
yeah.
takes that whole journey to kind of get to the job. But that's awesome. Thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about the gig that you landed, the process. What was it like? How did we in the program? How did we help you get ready for that?
I'm so sorry. I got a message right as you asked that question, and I
It's
didn't
okay.
hear the important what process.
No worries. Tell me about the process with the Rocket Lawyer. So let's go
Oh,
into that
sure.
final journey. Like, what was that interview process like? How was IPM part of that journey with you to get you ready
Yeah,
to kind of go through that whole thing?
yeah. So the process I applied online. I'll share this, and it is maybe encouraging and maybe incentivizing bad behaviors. Of all the companies I applied to that I moved forward in the interview process with, Rocket Lawyer was the one cold application that I
Hmm.
sent in while lying in bed with no referral. So that's just how the universe wanted to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once I got into it, obviously the team A really helped. I felt like, and I heard this through a couple of the interview processes that I went through. Just recruiters are so overwhelmed with volume of applicants
Hmm.
that it felt like I really was able to connect with the recruiter. Um, of all things, the personal note in my team A really resonated, and we had a conversation about it. And so, starting with that strong foundation was super helpful. Throughout the interview process, it was a relatively standard interview process. Didn't have some of the Amazon, Meta, Google style, structured loop
Hmm.
conversations, but there was a diversity of topics between strategy, design, technical expertise, all of that. And so both the coaching, but also just the content of the program really helped. I
Hmm.
kind of found myself as I was prepping for these interviews, finding that content, kind of getting myself reacquainted with it, using that as just like a prep to get my mind in the right spot. And that went through the conversations. Um, Towards the end, made it past the final, and really was able to leverage the coaching staff, Will, yourself,
Hmm.
on the negotiation conversations. There were definitely some moments where I would not have pushed, I would not have exerted a desire to, well, not a desire, but a willingness to negotiate and push for a higher comp. Um, and having some resources there was super helpful, just to be able to feel like I wasn't making any missteps, I wasn't offending anybody, or if I was, at least it was well practiced offense.
No, I think a good negotiation practice, doing it per I don't know, respectfully is the right way to do it, is to push and know your worth. That's
Yep.
There's nothing disrespectful in that process of saying, I know my value and I know what the market values me, and I'm okay asking for it. And it says a lot about um, your ability to do that. It was wonderful working with you through that process. I was many people, when they do it alone, it's they're willing to just accept instead of push.
Yeah.
And that push is healthy. It's, as long as it's done well, it can be very healthy. There are ways to do it unhealthily, and to do it in a way that can kind of sour some of the relationships. Um, and we we navigate around those often, and so then we don't have any of those problems, which is great.
Yeah. As a little anecdote, my strong suit is absolutely not negotiation. Uh, I'm a coalition builder, not a, try to be a stick in the mud kind of person.
Yep.
Um, and my knee-jerk assumption is always that this is something that's going to be taken away from me if I ask for too much. Um, I still felt that once I had a counteroffer, I still spent the next 3 days or however long it was, assuming that they were going to rescind the job offer. Having the support of the program and you behind it saying, that's not what happens. This was a respectful way to approach it. Uh, I slept a little bit better during those 3 days.
And they
um,
didn't rescind the offer, did
they
they?
did not rescind the offer. I am currently an employee.
Yes, which is great. Yeah, I think I the feelings are real. Like no one should discount that you're going to have some feelings. Uh, I saw someone the other day said the the few days of discomfort can be worth it if this is done well because it will
Mhm.
end up having an impact for the years to come that you're there.
Yeah.
And the best time to negotiate that is in the beginning. So it's okay to be uncomfortable for a while, but it still is uncomfortable. I get that. I'm glad that we could help you through that and support you. We've had a lot of great success in helping people do that part. But let's talk a little bit about, in your own words, how would you tell someone who is trying to decide about the job search program here at IPM? What is it? Kind of what's the what's it? What is it in your own words, or how you would describe it to someone if they were to come up and ask you about it?
Yeah. Transparently, I've actually struggled with the noun of the program. Sometimes I call it a product coaching program. Sometimes I call it a career coaching program. Sometimes I call it a job search program. Um, I think, at least from my experience, the way I would describe it is uh, it has been a structured way to approach a job search and know that you are going to, at the absolute minimum, be more efficient and have a set of guidelines that can help you focus on what is the most return on investment things to be doing, um, while also providing some background and some contextual awareness to the market. Um, I Earlier in this conversation, you said something and it made me think about what it would mean to be a product manager approaching a job search. And it's kind of an impossible thing to build or to solve a problem for because we don't have the other side of the information. You don't know what the user wants in this case, and so the IPM program served a bit as that, knowing, okay, like what am I trying to achieve in their eyes, and what are the tactics to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we just talked about emotion. There are so many emotions that go on through this. I do think that was a really critical part of it as well. Uh, Anytime I got discouraged or felt like I wasn't going in the right direction, at the very least, there's again a roadmap that says, hey, this is the next step. This is how you progress. This is what you're going to be doing next. And then there's a forum, a community of people that are all going through it with you. So joining the calls, hearing about where people are in their journey, was super helpful also to keep that motivation going.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's hard to see from the outside is the value of not I love our coaching staff. I think we have a really great talent here. The community is also hands down one of the best ones I've seen, particularly for product managers and in that same journey of in the job search. They're active, they share about their successes. They also are willing to be vulnerable and share about things that didn't necessarily go well. So you can
Yeah.
learn from their missteps, or you can be have an opportunity to invest in them and give them the encouragement. It's a constant investing in each other, which I really appreciate. I love that activity, and it's we can talk about it, but it's really hard for people to see it until they've experienced it.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you found that valuable too. Some people don't engage as much, but I think those that do, they get the most out of the program when they engage in the community as well. So if there's somebody watching right now and you're wanting to speak to them about the program or anything you'd want to share about their job search that you've just learned now that you've just wrapped yours up, what might that be? Or maybe you could go back to tell your own self before you joined the program, what would
Yeah.
be the advice that you'd give yourself as you're about to step into the program?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this and then I'll decide if this is my favorite answer. Um, we talked about earlier what my biggest hurdle was, or one of the hurdles, and that was cost. And I think it's worth acknowledging that this is not a low cost program. It's
Hmm.
you know quite a high early investment, and I had a hard time getting over that initially. Um, there's an element of investing in yourself, and you should be comfortable doing that, and it's for your own betterment. That's great. I think there's a practical side of it that um, I moved effectively laterally, at least in the level that I was working, um, but moved to a company where I see years of success and an upwards trajectory, in addition to increasing my salary by significantly more than the investment of the program.
Hmm.
Um, that if I could go back and have that conversation with myself or someone who's considering the program, it feels like that is a almost high likelihood outcome that you can go in expecting at the very least you're going to likely find somewhere that you're happier in, that you're more likely to be successful in, and you'll probably get paid more while you do it. I think that was the order of my priorities going in, and my family and I are very excited that I made this investment, even though it was a little tough up front.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that there's a lot of consideration, and when people are job searching, whether they're currently employed or they're not, obviously those have their own dynamics. Um, but time and time again, we see such a great return on investment when people are able to do that. But it's hard to know that ahead of time,
Yeah,
right? It always feels like an uncertainty, even though we feel like there's a great deal of certainty, that people will be successful when they go through and work the program. So thank you for sharing that. I
yeah.
appreciate it. James, I'm excited to see what you're going to be doing next. I will be following your career as you go. And thank you very much for sharing with us today and to being part of the program. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and working with you over these last number of months.
Thanks, Will, and yeah, thanks to everyone who's helped me get to where I am. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Congratulations again.
Thanks.